Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Welcome to The Money Factor, the program that focuses on business and consumer issues, as well as personal finance topics. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Our topic today, buying and selling a business from the perspective of a business broker. Our guest, Carl Cusano, President of Capital Business Advisors. Let's go meet him. Hi, Carl. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
This is good. Well, let's get right down to the questions.
Sure.
We're talking about business brokers. We're talking about buying and selling a business. And you're president of Capital Business Advisors.
That's right.
And I guess to tell us what exactly a business broker is and what your company does.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm a business broker, and Capital Business Advisors is a business brokerage firm. We assist people who are looking to either buy, sell, or value a business. Most of our work is done with people looking to buy and sell businesses, but occasionally we get into situations where people also need to know what the value of the business is, and we also handle some other consulting and what have you. But I'd say our bread and butter is really helping people who are either looking to transition in or out of a particular business. We work in some respects similarly to like a real estate agent, though selling a business is much more, I won't say complicated, but there's more to it than just listing a business and advertising it, because you're dealing with confidentiality and a number of things. So, but in a lot of respects, there are some similarities there, but probably more dissimilarities than there are similarities.
So what are the basic skills that your company and a business broker brings to the whole process?
Well, our main function is as an intermediary. We work primarily on behalf of our client, who's the seller of a business. We work with buyers, but we typically represent sellers, because as an intermediary, you really can only work one. You can only really have a fiduciary responsibility to either a buyer or a seller. You can't serve both their needs well at the same time. So what we typically do is represent someone who owns a business, who has decided for whatever reason that they would like to transition out of it, and we put together a marketing plan, and we value the business and take it to market, and then do our best job to find a suitable buyer for the business. And it's a pretty, I won't say it's a complicated business, but there's quite a few different aspects of it that are, something that we specialize in, and it's something that not a lot of people know that we exist. Business brokerage is kind of a cottage industry. When you go to sell a piece of property, you'll call your real estate broker. When it's time to sell a business, we don't always come to mind. So a lot of what we do is trying to educate the public as to what a business broker would bring to the table and the advantages of using a business broker.
Assuming that somebody realizes that they need a business broker, how would they go about choosing one? How would they evaluate one?
Sure. It's a good question. In New York State, there's actually no licensure required to be a business broker. So there are some people in the industry that, I guess, restated better, there really aren't any really requirements. The Real Estate Commission doesn't require licensure. In some states, that's the case. So I think when someone does seek out the services of a business broker, the ideal situation is to find someone who has suitable experience, who's handled transactions of businesses like theirs, and has possibly the designations within the industry organizations. I'm a member of the International Business Brokers Association, and I'm also the president of the New York Association of Business Brokers, and through these organizations, we have educational venues and certification programs. But I think that the best thing, or the best gauge to use in evaluating a business broker is past experience, and I frequently will, refer potential clients to some past clients to kind of explain, how we achieved success, provided that we did, and just kind of bridge the gap, because there's again, selling a business isn't something that someone does often. You may sell your house 4 or 5 times in a lifetime, but selling a business usually is a one-time occurrence.
And it could be very personal, and I guess there's a range of types of people that would be selling their business, and it must be interesting to deal with the people who have owned a business maybe all their life, and now maybe the children aren't interested or the relatives aren't interested. What is that like?
Well, in the beginning, it's 98%, knowing people, and 2% really, let's say, knowing what to do. And as you become more experienced as a broker, obviously the technical skills are important. But it's very much most people, when they, if we're talking about people selling their business, it comes about mainly for personal reasons as opposed to financial reasons. Sometimes that is the motivation, but it could be that there's an illness either with that particular person, or an illness in the family possibly, or they may be burned out. There could be a partnership that isn't working out quite well, boredom, a variety of reasons why people might want to sell their business. But understanding human nature and the reasons for wanting to sell and what motivates those people, and again, that also works on the buy side for people looking to purchase a business. What is motivating them to purchase a business? In summary, a lot of what we do is kind of dealing with human emotions, and a little bit of psychology is kind of sprinkled in there. So having those skills, having good people skills, is something that I think serves someone quite well in the business.
And you underlined the experience.
Absolutely.
I think we could do that several times.
Absolutely. The experience, there's no replacement for experience. We frequently get involved in businesses that we may not have experienced in the past, new, different types of businesses. And the process isn't necessarily all that different per se. Though certain businesses may be marketed differently, the process for the most part is relatively similar. There may be different venues or different sources you may go to, or different buyers you may want to attract specifically, but the process is pretty consistent. But dealing with the human element and understanding the motivation, whether it's either a buyer or seller, is a very important skill to have.
Now, you mentioned several reasons, several services that you provide.
Sure.
Buyers, helping buyers buy, helping sellers sell, and the third one, which is a little less frequent, is putting a value on a business. But it sounds like that is a very technical and can be a challenging one, especially if you need to know what you're buying and people need to know what they're selling.
Absolutely.
So how do you do that?
Yes, it's an excellent question. And we do valuation kind of on 2 different levels. And our valuation work for people who are let me back up and say most of our valuation work is done for the purpose of someone wanting to understand what the value of their business prior to taking it to market. But as I mentioned before, there are other reasons. It could be one partner maybe buying another partner out, or there could be a divorce, or possibly a merger of two companies. Regardless of what the motivation is, it really is a good idea to understand what the value of your business is, even if the immediate goal is not to sell it. I subscribe to the mindset that even an ongoing concern with an owner that doesn't have any intentions of selling it in the next 3 to 5 years, they really should know what the value of their business is. And identifying what the value of the business is can be, let's say, a process that can be quite technical, because the challenge with businesses is, as opposed to real estate, is there really aren't an awful lot of comparable sales data. There isn't a lot of comparable sales data on a business. So we employ a variety of methods of valuation based on the earning power of the business, the asset structure of the business, and also the future earning power of the business. But to simplify it, the value is directly, I think, attributed to the earning power, the cash flow that the business can generate. And again, valuation is something that we do as a service to our clients. It really isn't the most enjoyable part of my business because it's more technical. I enjoy the people side of it a little bit more, but it's a necessary aspect of it and something that really needs to be done early on in the process, because at that point the seller or buyer can determine, is this a venue that I should pursue at this point. So we work very hard to keep up on what's current in the valuation realm, but it can be challenging because, again, no two businesses are alike.
Is it anything like what a bank would do if you went in to get a loan? Of course, if it was a small loan, they just need to know they have enough. But if it were a big loan where you were going to expand your business, would it be similar to that, or are there a lot of other factors involved?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of factors involved. Historically, though, valuation is based on past performance, as opposed if I were going to a bank possibly to obtain financing for a particular venture, you would be looking more at the future earning powers of a business. Valuation typically looks at the historical earning power of the business, capitalizing that cash flow. And again, you're looking, depending on a type of business. For instance, you could have a business with a very substantial investment in assets and equipment and what have you, and generating a low cash flow, whereas you could have a business such as an accounting firm with very few assets generating a high cash flow.
Right.
So again, what really doesn't work well are rules of thumb per se.
So you could sell that equipment even if you weren't making money on it.
Absolutely. We try and approach it by setting kind of a floor for the business value, then building upon that based on what the earning power is. And again, it can be tricky because a business with a big investment in assets could be providing a marginal return on income, whereas a small, what it really comes to, at least in our realm on the small Main Street to mid-sized businesses, it's really the cash flow or the earning power of the business that has the greatest value.
And that's similar to a lot of other things like the stock market or valuing any kind of security. So that's a classic way of valuing something. Well, let's get into the buying and selling part a little bit. In terms of selling, could you give people a tip on if they are interested in selling?
Sure.
What do you recommend?
Well, I think there's a number of things that a potential seller of a business or someone who's contemplating selling a business could do. My first suggestion is start planning early. What I mean by that is don't wait till it's time to sell to begin the process. There's usually a period of, let's say, 2 to 3 years kind of pre-sale planning that should be done. And some of the obvious things are, or may not seem obvious, is really to make sure that your financial records are in good order. The big challenge when people want to sell their business is that the accounting processes, whether it be internally or through their accountant, has been to minimize taxes on their tax returns. So we instruct our clients to invest in their taxes per se by making the business as attractive as possible, in the sense that there's a clear, definable line of income that can be followed, or kind of an audit trail per se on the business record. So getting your financial records in order, I think, is of utmost importance.
So that would involve accounting. It could involve a new way of managing your inventory, I suppose, or putting in a request to the IRA to change the way you manage the valuation of your equipment in business.
Sure, and that can include, that could include things such as liquidating unprofitable or underutilized assets, possibly inventory that's outdated, and a general also sprucing up of the business. If there's any equipment that's in disrepair or not functioning, take care of that, liquidate it. What you really want to do is put your best foot forward and really try and maximize the appeal of the business, not only on paper with your financial records and what have you, but also visually, because a buyer is going to make a determination rather quickly whether this is a business that they have interest in pursuing or not. So you have to have that curb appeal. Other things I would suggest would be, developing a team of advisors to include your accountant and your attorney, and do some tax planning, because that's another aspect of selling a business. Is at the closing table there'll be a buyer, a seller, possibly a broker, but Uncle Sam will also be at the table. So you want to do whatever you can to minimize your taxes, and that's done through prudent tax planning before the fact, so you have an idea of what your tax obligation will be at the time the sale occurs.
Well, I can see from all those things that you really do need a few years to do this. It's not something that should happen quickly.
Yes. The worst time, or let me restate that, the best thing to do is really, like I say, take whatever time is necessary to get the business ready to sell. At that point, and it could be, depending on the type of business, if the records are in good order, and things have business has been operating profitably, and there isn't any deferred maintenance, and sales are strong, it may only be 12 months. It may actually only be a few months before you have to get ready. But for a business that really hasn't prepared itself well, that really translates into a challenging situation, because again, you're trying to attract buyers who are looking at profitability, appeal, and all those other factors, and doing it as you go isn't the best way to do it. So that planning, I think, is something that really is essential in achieving success.
Any advice relative to staff? Because some businesses may be a person working 80 hours a week and not much staff, maybe a part-time something. But if you have some staff members, now their future, their earnings, as well as how they would function under a new boss could be possibly a factor in the sale?
In many times, in most cases, one of the most important assets that a company sells or a business sells are the employees and the relationships that those employees have. So many owners also don't want to let their employees know that the business is for sale. Obviously, we're trying to do this discreetly, unlike selling a piece of property where you would put a sign in the front yard or in the window. You really can't do that effectively with selling a business. So many owners are reluctant to talk to their employees and let them know. And I don't, in certain situations, depending on the people, that may be an acceptable strategy. I really, though, suggest to most of my clients that they bring the key people in and let them know what their intentions are, to get them on board, because again, a buyer is going to interview these people, and they'll want to keep these people typically on staff, because they're kind of the bridge between the owner and the new owner, and they can help the business transition much more smoothly than if someone were bringing their own new people in. So, and many buyers, most buyers of the businesses really would like to keep the key people in place, at least long enough until they've developed their idea of whether that's productive employees, so forth. But in most small businesses, like I say, the employees are really one of the key assets, and they should be brought into the equation sooner rather than later.
Sounds like a humane and also a smart thing to do for a variety of reasons.
Absolutely. I think the employees respect it, and they don't feel like it was a last minute. They really respect that. Again, when owners are reluctant to do that, and in some cases we'll work under those circumstances, but once we've come to a meeting of the minds with a particular buyer, the earlier you can get the employees understanding what the process is, I think the better.
There's a lot of good information there. I just wonder, maybe like free-floating, any common mistakes that you might want to mention that people make when selling?
Yes. I think there are a number of mistakes. The key mistakes are really not having a proper or realistic value of the business. The challenging part of selling a business is only about 1 in 4 businesses actually sells, which means that 3 out of 4 don't. They either liquidated or they're closed down or something else happens. And most of the time it's because the business valuation or the asking price is too high. So again, that takes us back to understanding what the real value of the business is. And the business itself, out of the cash flow of the business, the earning power, the net income, has to do 2 or 3 main things. It has to provide the owner with a fair salary to run the business. It also has to be able to handle the debt service. Most people who buy a business will borrow money, whether it be from a bank or from the owner. So it has to be able to repay the debt back to whomever they're borrowing from, and also has to provide kind of a sinking fund for replacement of assets, whether it be equipment or what have you. And if the cash flow of the business can do those 3 things, then the price is usually within line. Even more importantly, I think, than overall price is the terms. Most buyers don't have the capacity to buy the business for all cash, so they'll either look to the seller to finance a portion of the business, or they may go to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, through a lender and secure financing. But unlike a house where you would typically be able to line up 100% financing if you're approved by a lender, that isn't always the case with a business. So I think that's a mistake. Also, just again, as we said before, not being ready to sell. Not have done the homework that you should to get the business, up to snuff, making sure that it's appealing and what have you.
I was kind of surprised at the number. 1 in 4 businesses sell, and so I was wondering then, well, how many of those are closed down for reasons other than poor preparation and an unreasonable sale price?
Yeah, and it's a good question, and as an organization, as an industry, we've been compiling this data for a number of years. Most of the businesses don't sell because there are typically unrealistic expectations from the owner. But many businesses, even the ones that are profitable, and some quite profitable, are tough to sell because they may not have the market appeal. For instance, personal service type businesses, whether you own let's say, a beauty salon or a contracting business, or some business where typically you're the sole provider of that service, are challenging. And some of these businesses are generating decent cash flows, but you have to find someone exactly with that same skill set, and you're competing against all the other business opportunities out there. So there's a vast array of different businesses that a buyer has to choose from. So it's kind of survival of the fittest. Those businesses which are generating a sufficient cash flow, have good prospects for growth, because people typically buy businesses to improve the business, improve the profitability. And that's what I always tell my clients. If you don't, or a buyer, I say, if you don't have the intention of improving this business don't buy it in the first place. That's where the opportunity lies in order to grow the business and kind of take it to the next level.
We only have about 5 minutes, so I think we should give that to buying a business.
Okay.
We could start out with advice for people who are buying.
Excellent. Well, first of all, there are a lot of resources available on the internet. I encourage people to go to my website, and there's some good information there. But there's more and more real good, solid information on the website through websites such as bizbuysell.com, bizquest.com. These are kind of marketplaces for people to search for businesses. Brokers such as myself will put our businesses on there and people can search. But there's a lot of good resources available. I think that the best, the best resource would be talking to someone who's been in business for themselves in the past. And if you're new to business, and it really depends on where the buyer's coming from. If they're transitioning from, let's say, a corporate job, and it's their first foray into business, they may want to consider buying a franchise, because franchises are ideal for those people who want to be in business for themselves but not by themselves. So keep all your options open in regards to the type of business. We have people that come to us looking for a manufacturing business and they'll end up buying a food business. So keep your options open in that respect to really identify, what you may think what you may think is the type of business that you initially had interest in may develop into something else. So
now, maybe I'll give myself one more question. We're
Sure.
almost out of time. The timing. If you're interested in buying a business, should you look at economic cycles, or what kind of things should you focus on in terms of the timing of buying a business?
that's a good question. My suggestion there is it really depends on the individual, whether it's and if we're talking about someone purchasing a business, personal circumstances more than the economy. The purchase and sale of businesses is vibrant in busy or good economic times, but also in times where companies are downsizing, such as what's happening to some local companies here and throughout the country. Those people really who would like to stay in the area or relocate to a particular area have come to realize that they have more control over their own life and their own destiny by running their own business. So we're not so much, I think, affected by economic trends per se, more so what happens in that individual's life. Someday, you may wake up and say, geez, I really want to run my own business, and keeping all your options open and kind of just scanning the whole horizon. And it's something that may not happen in 6 weeks or 6 months. It may take 2 years or more to find the right business.
Which would make it really hard to plan
Absolutely.
in terms of economic time, because it's going to take you a while if you do it right.
Right.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think we're just about out of time, so I want to thank you very much, Carl, for being on our show.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank everybody for watching and invite you to next week's show. Have a great week.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.